Hello, everyone. As you said, my name is Darlene Sanchez. I'm a 3D, 2D journalist and also the motion graphics creative manager for the Tampa Bay Lightning. For those of you who may not know who they are, they're a professional hockey team in the NHL based out of Tampa Bay, Florida. And before I jump in today, I just wanted to extend a huge thank you to Maxon and Matthias for having me on again. This is my first NAB and time in Vegas ever, so this is quite the experience. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to go ahead and start right off with my show reel for you guys. So just a little bit about myself before I jump in. I've been working in the sports industry for about 6 to 7 years. Before that, I operated as a traditional artist for about 10, doing just simple stuff like watercolor painting, portraiture, Copic markers, pencils, you name it, doing one-off commissions like Sharpie art on a motorcycle, and even as working as a waitress in college, I did the chalkboard signs at the restaurant I was working at. So I've always been in the art realm for a while before transitioning into the 3D realm of things. And what eventually led me to motion design is that I'm just a huge sci-fi horror, fantasy, anything fan. I really dig title intros. I'll never skip one. I want to work on one someday. And it's because of that, an admissions counselor at the Ringling College of Art actually recommended me motion design and visual effects. So long story short, I ended up in Tampa at the Art Institute because I had family. And I started off as an intern with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who had Cinema 4D not being used, and they let me use it to learn, and I've not stopped using it since then. So now, while doing sports work, I also operate as a journalist at home, just playing around. I think there's a lot of power in practicing personal work. I find it's made me a stronger designer, faster designer, which is what I need as far as sports. As you'll see soon here, sports is a fast-paced environment as far as graphics is concerned. There's never one project. So to explain my work with the Lightning, I work for the game presentation department. We go by the name Lightning Vision, soon to be VSG Productions. And essentially who we are is we're the game entertainment for fans that come watch the games. And we put on a live broadcast, essentially, in-house for the fans for about the 2.5 hours the game lasts. So it's your title intros, your PAs, promotional templates, logo loops, replay wipes, overlays, you name it, it's everything. And on top of that, we also service the other departments in the company. So we do help out social, marketing, web, and any events that may come to the arena. If they need any requests, we also handle those as well. And as far as our show, we do max out at just under 20,000 fans at all times. We do sell out a lot, so that's a lot of fun. And a big caveat about working in sports is that you're never going to work in one format. You will max out at maybe 20, depending on the project. You could do 5, you could do 10, 12, or max is 20. So it can get pretty hectic pretty fast. So time management is key. And that's one of the things I love about Maxon and the Red Giant Suite, because they help me keep my things looking well in a quick fashion. And it helps us do what my boss likes to say is create memories. We're creating memories for our fans that come in. This is just an example of all of those pieces working together. So it's not just myself on the MoGraph squad, it's also our videographers, our live talent on the ice, our audio engineers, lighting engineers. All of us work together in sync to put on a show for our fans. We want them to have a world-class experience, aka creating memories. And that's what we do here. And this is just an example from our playoff show from last season. And we're currently in the process of building a new one for the upcoming playoffs that start next week. And moving on to our theme nights. So on top of having a look for the Lightning, we also go ham for anything themed. So this is just a few examples from nights that we normally have. We have a 90s retros night, we have Halloween, Hockey Fights Cancer, you name it. And essentially what we do is we recreate a whole new broadcast package for each one of those games. And I'm bringing this up because the project I'm going over today is actually from one of those themes. It's from our Gasparilla Show. And just to briefly explain what Gasparilla is, it's a holiday in Tampa that's essentially the Mardi Gras, but with pirates. So it's a bunch of pirates in the streets, getting drunk, having fun, at a parade at 11 a.m. And it's loosely based in history about pirates that were in the region. But really it's just an excuse to have fun in the streets. And why hockey is involved with this is because the last 2 years we've been blessed with a game on the exact same day. So we were faced with the challenge of half of our fan base probably being drunk or just not with it by the time our game starts at 7 p.m. So we had to put out more effort to make it really cool, really fun, to hype up their energy again, because our focus is to maintain the energy of our fans, because the more excited they are, the more loud they are, and our players feed off that energy. So this is actually one of my favorite nights we've done so far, and the project I'm going over today came from this look specifically, and this is the design that came from our marketing department. And what I went ahead and did was recreate a 3D version of it, and I had a lot of fun making this. It's definitely one of my favorite projects to date. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like animated. Bear with me just a minute here. I'll run through it twice. And this was just to be up on the screen as fans are entering. We have about an hour. We call it just our walk-in sequence, where we're just creating an environment for people to come in and like just get excited, right? So this is kind of one of the things we had up during that time. We had Pirates of the Caribbean like music playing. So as they're trying to get seated and have drinks and stuff, they're already in our world of gnarly pirates and hockey. So we're gonna go into this project today. And let me skip over this because I don't need this anymore. But to touch loosely on how it was made, because I'm going to cover essentially the workflow as far as animation. So I adapted a skull we had and then pushed it through Substance Painter. So I knew using Substance Painter would help me get closer to the look of the original design, but also make it really gnarly and really cool, get some really cool details in it to showcase later. So that's kind of how the skull was put together. And then I acquired a cutlass sword that looked similar with the proper licensing and then broke it apart. So then I could add this custom hilt to it because our designer did a really good job of taking apart our Lightning logo and putting it into the design of the hilt, which I thought was really cool. So I pulled out the spline from the EPS, extruded in Cinema, then merged the other pieces together in ZBrush, and then again went to Substance to customize it, and went a little bit extra and engraved our name on the side, which I thought was pretty cool. So that kind of drove the idea behind the animation, was to showcase all these details I built in and then reveal all these pieces assembled together in the end. And this is just an example of it in the wild. And then I went ahead and took this model and then repurposed it over and over. So I really love this guy, and as you see one of these images, we did play the home team for one of these Gasparilla nights, the Vegas Knights, which was probably a pretty epic matchup when you think pirates and knights. It's kind of common, right? So that was a really fun night. I hope we get to do it again next year. Now, moving on to what I'm going to touch base on today. These are the key things that really pushed it to the next level, gave it a nice little cinematic, dramatic look I was going for. So we'll start with a little bit of pose morph, utilizing the sculpting tag, a little bit about dope sheets, the take systems, which is the big one, and camera lenses, and just a little bit of magic bullet in post. And let me go ahead and open that up. So here's the logo in the raw. And you'll see here, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole animation, was animating these eyes. It was, once I realized I could do this, I got so excited, and it took me less than half an hour to pull this part off. And I think it's honestly one of the best parts of the whole animation, just in my opinion. And it was really easy to do. So that's what I'll go ahead and start with. So I went ahead and pulled this out with just this skull here. And I just wanted to know, we're gonna sculpt onto this skull. And one of the things to keep in mind when you're gonna sculpt on top of something that's already textured, just be mindful of the texture. You might drag this out or distort it too much. So you have to be careful with how much you sculpt on top. So where you'll start is with, you go up to mesh and subdivide your object here. So you have this sculpting tag, and then make sure you go back up and go to sculpt, your brushes. Hit this line up here so then it pops out your tools. And then before you start doing this, you're gonna open up your layer manager in attributes that came from the tag. Open that up and make sure you lock in your base so you lose the original. That's something I didn't do the first time around, so I went ahead and sculpted because I got so excited. And my solution to that is I had to then animate in reverse and sculpt it back to look normal before going back to my angry face. So make sure you save your base layer, everyone. So then I'm gonna go ahead and change this to angry because he's gonna look angry because he's a pirate. And go ahead and just use my grab tool here. And I just wanted to start and just, again, be mindful if you're doing this in the context of something that's already textured, be mindful of the texture because you can distort it if you go too hard. So then I'm just gonna delete this so we can see him better. And really this is all I did, and it took, again, like just a few minutes where you do what you need to do. So I'm just gonna use my grab tool and make him look like he's angry, like the original logo. And then we're gonna have him have like a little snarl too. I'm not going to go too in depth just for speed purposes, but that's really just how easy it is. Now, if you wanted to add another layer, you can do that. And do like another face if you want. So I'm going to make him sad now, just to show a difference here. And I'm going to tap my open bracket key so I can make my brush bigger. So I can do this a little faster. And we're gonna make him sad. And what's really great about the pose morph and the sculpting tag is that there's really no limit to how many little poses you can do. So if you wanted to do something more intricate and to animate, just what we're gonna do here in a second, you can really just go ham here. So now that I have that, and I have my angry face, I'm gonna go ahead and go up to my tools and then sculpt to pose morph. So now it went ahead and duplicated the skull. So I have the original, and then I have my morphs saved in here. So I went ahead and tapped the tag, and I can go down to attributes and then click animate. So now I have my sliders here with my two poses that I just made. And now you can animate. And that's really all I did in the moment to do that little thing you see in the original logo. So then now you can go ahead to 0, change him to normal, click your key, and then back to 100, click your key, and now you have, you're supposed to have a gnarly skull. Let's see. What did I do? Give me just a moment, guys, because I did not do this the right way. So another thing I'm going over today, which is about to help me out, is a dope sheet where you can look at all your keys at once. It showcases pretty much your entire project. So now I can go see what I just did that's messing with my animation here. So I'm going to delete my extra ones that I had saved to show you guys. Don't need them. And another thing about the dope sheet is if you properly label, then you'll be able to see what's going on here, which they didn't do it for me. All right, so I think it's this guy. Well, this one's not playing nice with me. So if you do this correctly, you should be able to animate. There we go, with the strength. All right. No matter what, you can always figure out an issue you may have in the moment. So I'm going to start at 0, and then I'm going to go back up to 150. Go, and strength. And now he's animating slowly. And now I can adjust that, right? He's slow right now. So I go up to window, go down to dope sheet. Now there's 2 ways to open up the dope sheet. You can do it this way where it pops down here, or what I prefer is to have it pop out. So I'm just gonna tap this again to get rid of it at the bottom, go back up to window, down to animation, and pop it out. So now I'm gonna fix my keys because he's being angry, not fast enough. And then just drag this key down. So now he will become angry in 60 frames. And that's pretty much it about pose morphs. You can go ahead and then animate your different morphs. And then you can open up your dope sheet and then adjust accordingly. So those are the first 2 things I wanted to talk about today, which that worked out, that I messed it up in the first round. So now we're going to move on to take system, which is a really powerful system that at first can be intimidating, but you'll see how it can be pretty useful for your project, especially if you have a lot of things going on. So for my project here, now to find your takes, it's always next to your objects and attributes. And for my project here, you'll see there's 5 takes. And the purpose was because I wanted to use the same model and keep my lighting and texturing the same, relatively the same, and take system helps me do that. So within the same project, I can now animate different views and different angles with slightly adjusted lighting. And the reason I chose to do this is because I wanted to go in deep and show the details I built into Substance in the animation before showcasing the full thing in the end, assembling to add a little bit of drama. And like where this could be useful is if you have a product, like say you have glassware for alcohol and you want to showcase different shapes of beer glasses, you can easily do that all in the same project. Or if you wanted to do like a wine bottle that has different labels, you can also put them in this take system and then just change the label per take. It's those types of situations where the take would really help. And another project, I recently used the take system to animate a clock where I didn't need to have the clock in all the takes, but I did need different cameras for all my takes. And I only had 1 take that utilized the clock, and I separated it in that 1 take and then was able to animate and not change anything else and kept the project pretty clean. So to start from scratch and show that, I have this simple project animated here with 3 takes. Now, starting fresh, again, you go to objects and then your takes, and then if you tap the 3 lines here and just drag it over where you can see now there's a white line here. Now I have it next to my objects, and you'll see why that's useful in a few moments here. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these takes I have, and we'll start from scratch. And pretty much here I have 3 cameras already animated. in my project, in my main project, with 3 separate objects. And the goal is to showcase each one, right? So just to explain, the main in your take is essentially your Cinema 4D project. So anything you import, anything you animate or build out first is going to live in the main, and anything else after that is just a saved copy of the original. So that's a good way to like grasp how it works. And so what I'll do is go ahead and make a new take. So just by going up here and hitting the plus sign, I already have a new version. And I'll just name this as camera 1. And there's 2 ways that you can then start building your take out. You can either hit this A, which means auto record. It's going to record any change you make in your new take. Or you can then just drag your subject, in this case my platonic. I'm going to drag it over to the dual screen here, and now it's officially in my take. Now I can make changes to it if I want. And I'm also going to drag my camera into this as well, because I'm going to have use that here. Another thing with the take is you can then go and assign your camera to it by hitting this camera icon next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and assign my first camera to this take. And same with the render settings. When we get there, we'll make some render settings, and then we can adjust them here as well, which looks like I already have it saved. So now this one's technically ready to go. Now I'm going to do it again with a new take, camera 2. And same thing, I can just go ahead, for this one I'll go ahead and hit auto record, and then just turn these off, which for that I'd have to drag them all in, if that makes sense, for it to record that. Another way to get around that is if I were to go to my main and just turn these all off, go to my camera 1, see how it's already turned on, and that's because I already had dragged it and saved it into my first take. Now for my second take, it's gone, right? So then I'll hit auto record and turn it on, and then hit turn it off. So now it's saved in that new take. So now I can bounce between these 2, and you'll see that they're different. But if I go back to my main, they're still all turned off, right? And then same for my third take. We'll just drag it over like we did the first one. And then since it's already turned off in the original, for this one I would have to tap it and then hit auto record, click it on, and save it. And then that's how it's recorded in that way. So as you can see, there's different ways to add subjects into your takes to achieve the same goal. It's just a matter of what your preference is. Another thing you can easily do is customize your textures, or if you had MoGraph text in here and wanted to change the text, you can go in and then add them to the take as well. Also note at the bottom here that it's grayed out, and that's because it hasn't been overridden yet. So when you see where it says this lock and it says lock overrides, that means like when this is on and I have this subject in there, I can then override it. So overriding is how you save it into your specific take, right? So if I go back, if I drag this in here, now it's no longer gray. Now I'm able to edit this texture just by dragging it. Didn't have to hit auto record. And that if you ever find yourself in the weeds or anything that you're trying to work in one of these projects and you see it grayed out, that's the reason. It's because it's not overridden inside your specific take. Now you can always go back to your main and make changes because that's where everything lives, right? Now with that being set up, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and adjust a color here. So I want this one to be red. So see how that's grayed out? I can just drag that into there, and now I can change my color. So I'll just change it to red. So now if I were to go through my different takes here, the one I just altered is now red, and it's just red in that specific take. So if I want to go ahead and do that again, I can just hold on, I'm not in the right take. Go here and drag my color into take 2, and then I can change this color again. Let's make it purple. And then now when I bounce between them, this is gray, this is purple, and this is red. So that's just a quick and really basic explanation of the take system, because obviously you can go ham here and have a lot of different combinations as to what you choose to put in your takes. And now, as I mentioned before, you can go and make sure your cameras are assigned appropriately just by clicking on these icons. So I'll make sure my camera 2 is going to render out with camera 2 with my camera 2 render settings that I already set up. Same for camera 3. Camera 3. Now, there's also 2 ways on how you can set your takes to render. You can go up here in the takes tab, hit render, and render takes all to PV if you would like. You'll see how it also has an option for render mark takes to PV, and that's what these checkbox is meant for. So if you check these off, this is how you can tell Cinema, I only want to render these takes. So say like I don't need to render out camera 1 yet or camera 3. I have this marked. It's only going to render camera 2 just because I have this checked, and I selected the option to render mark takes to PV. So same thing applies for when you go to your render queue. You can go up here, open up render queue, go up to file and add project with all takes or all marked takes. So say I want to see, these are all my takes. Notice how I set it to render all takes. It also included my main. So most of the time, you wouldn't really need to render your main. You're only going to render your takes. So just keep that in mind if you're working fast. This is where, okay, maybe just marking my takes will be better for you. So let me just delete this again and add project with marked takes. So now it only added camera 2 because that's the only one that has this checked. So it's a great tool. I've used it a lot now. It's something I go to. Specifically, it's helped me organize my projects better because I approach them in the way of, okay, what's going to work best for me in the moment to add it to the takes? And that's all in the organization of it, how it's labeled and put in your nulls so it's saved appropriately. So then it's easier just to drag over your stuff into your option here. So that's it for takes here. And I'm going to move on to camera lenses. Now, camera lenses is a great way to add to the story you're trying to put on for your animation. It can really change just the whole mood and style of it. In this case, I was going for something cinematic, something very dramatic. I wanted to show off the skull. So I made sure to look into camera lenses to see how I can make my animation better. And 2 tutorials that actually helped me grasp that was one of David Ariev's on schoolofmotion.com has one that really breaks it down for you. And also one from Grayscale Gorilla broke it down really good as well. So I highly recommend those just for a full breakdown with nice images to explain it. But pretty much you've got your super wide. As you can see the skulls in here. They're really small. It's like you're a small person looking up. It's a good lens if you have a very large scene and you want to showcase that scene. That would be a good lens to show it with. The only thing about this is that when you do that, it does distort your model up front. So if you're trying to do this with a person inside your project, it's probably not the best because then it's not going to look like it should. Unless that's the vibe you're going for, then by all means go for it. For like a trippy fear in Las Vegas loathing vibe, that would be your choice. So I just went ahead and put these here so you can just see what the differences are. As you can see, just between these 2 different lenses, note the background is changing. Now it's closer to you. And these skulls are more proportionate. And now I go down to the 35 millimeter. Again, most of the buildings are now cut off, but this is now more proportionate. And the 35 millimeter lens is the default lens in cinema. So most of the time, this is what you'll be working with if you don't change it, which I do that a lot. And I've started to play around with lenses for that. And then we go into the 50 millimeter, same thing. Your background is now bigger and your subjects look closer and more proportionate. And that's just really the key difference here. Now they're all flat. You can't really tell that they're kind of in different spaces and Z depths. And it just goes on and on like that. Now, for camera lenses, it's just what really helps is having a base understanding of cinematography and photography. Those rules do apply and help you achieve a better, more cinematic look to your animations. And just to show one of the shots I did of the skull, you can see how it changes and distorts the farther down I go. And I believe for this project, I stuck with the 50 just so I can get a nice shot of that logo on the skull's forehead. Now, my last touch point for today is the Magic Bullet Suite. I love the Magic Bullet Suite. There's never a day where I'm not using it. And it's a quick and easy way to add some color grading to your project, especially if that's not what your focus is. I know it's not my focus, but I do like playing with colors, but I do love it when my life is made easy from some plugins that are easy to tweak and adjust on the fly. So I'm always working on the fly. So I'm just going to cover loosely each one that's available in Magic Bullet, just so you can know what the key differences are. So we'll start with Moho, which is what I actually used for this project. And the thing about Moho is that it's designed to give you a Hollywood look in a short amount of time. Now, I'm not sure why. Oh, here are the options. So you'll start with different presets if you'd like, where you can change the mood pretty easily. Or you can start with 0 and tweak it yourself. You add the Moho tint. And this is the route I ended up going until it just looked like something I liked. It popped out my details. And I really like it because you can add your vignette here and then go ahead and even adjust the exposure and all that stuff. And the main key thing here is that Hollywood tint on top is the difference for Moho. So now for Colorista, this is a focus on color. So if you don't really need much else and you just want to adjust the colors, this is a good one. What I love about this one is it has guided color correction with a brief description for each point in the process, which I really like, especially if you're not familiar with color grading. It's a nice little informational process as you go through the actual process of color grading. And all you really do is you make your choices according to your project. You go in, you adjust the levels accordingly, like here. The blue is too much, it's too hot, so you can tweak it and just keep going. And it just really makes your life pretty easy, and it's color grading on the fly. Let's see here. And just like that, I have a nice color grade in just a few seconds. Now for film, this one is based in the traditional processes of filmmaking, where it taps into the photochemical process of color grading. And that's like the main thing when it comes to the film. Again, all of these come with an option to tweak it, which I really like the grain option on here, where you can add or take off your grain or give it a vintage or modern look. If you'd like, adjust the exposure. All of these options have presets where you can start and then adjust it accordingly if you want. Looks is one of my favorites as well, because this one is more on the creative side, where you can have your presets but also customize them or give them cool effects. And another cool thing about looks, which for some reason the presets aren't popping, oh, there they are, is that this is also available inside of Cinema 4D in the render option and your picture viewer. You can open this same thing up here and choose a preset and then tweak it from there. As I said, these have like little special effects you can also adjust. So that's one of the main things with looks, is that you can get super creative and you have extra tools to even add more creative stuff on top of that. And then as far as renoiser and denoiser, it's pretty self-explanatory, where you can add some noise or if you have something really grainy, you can customize it. Now, one thing I don't see on here is Cosmo. It's part of Magic Bullet. And Cosmo is like cosmetology. It's meant for actors and actresses. In my case, if I needed to use Cosmo, I would use it on a hockey player, would be its purpose. So each one of these have their specific purpose to really help you out on the fly. And what's great is you can even stack them if you want. So like if you did Cosmo, you're adjusting your actor or player, then you can go ahead and give them like a really cool looks on top of that. And then so you have essentially a lot of combos here just to really take your project to the next level in a short amount of time. And that's pretty much all I had for you guys today. So thank you. Hope I shared some useful things for you. If you have any questions, you can find me here and all my socials.